just feel like we have to prioritize our purpose and our fulfillment and make sure that we are happy and that we are aligned with why we were called to Earth at this particular time in space.
And I want us to end on a point talking about legacy. You very recently lost your father. My mother's in the tender stages of beginning to leave us, and we are so grateful that we have her. But we know that these are those tender stages, and I'm really curious about how people process family legacy, the lessons we learn from the elders, and how they help to guide our steps. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dream Leapers. I'm your host, Harriette Cole. So excited to be with you today. For a long time, there's a publicist that I work with a lot who brings me amazing guests. And she has been telling me, Harriette, I've got somebody who's perfect for you, who's perfect for Dream Leapers. And this show is where I encourage people just like you, all of you out there, to access and activate your dreams. And the Dream Leaper I'll be speaking with today is an entertainment industry gem whose goal has always been, as he says, to create space and opportunity for dreamers to see themselves reflected in ways that inspire them to dig deeper into purpose and become their best selves. Does that sound familiar? Doesn't that sound like the message that we say every week? Yes. Well, the person who's bringing that message to us today is Steve Jones. He is a producer, author, and marketing executive who has spent more than 2 decades shaping the culture behind the scenes and uplifting the voices of creatives of color. Steve is the founder of Hollywood Confidential, a groundbreaking platform and live event series that has featured icons like Angela Bassett, Issa Rae, Regina King, Lupita Nyong'o, and many more, and all while mentoring the next generation of talent. Through his company, Brand Mavericks Entertainment, he has worked with powerhouse brands like Coca-Cola and L'Oreal. Aside from his marketing specialties, he has produced high-impact specials which featured icons like Tyler Perry, Viola Davis, and Beyonce. Yes, Queen Bee. His latest endeavor is his recently released book, Hollywood Confidential, 12 Secrets to Becoming the Star of Your Own Life. And this book offers wisdom and insights for people who are ready to pursue their dreams. I know we are in for a treat. Please join me in welcoming the entertainment visionary, Steve Jones. How are you?
I'm good. I was trying to get you through the bio so that we could just get to it.
Well, the bio is important. You've done a lot of great things. And as Yona, who I love, Yona, your book publicist, she has been just singing your praises, especially because a lot of the messages that are so dear to you are also dear to me. And so there's some great synergy there. And we always like when that's true.
Yeah. Just always awkward to listen about yourself. So I was just ready to move on. But thank you so much for having me on your platform. It's an honor to be here.
Of course. So Hollywood is a place that is very closed, we've had lots of push-pull as it relates to diversity in Hollywood, of having opportunity in Hollywood. And now, post writers and director strikes and the pandemic, everything's sort of upside down. I know a lot of people who are working or not there. And, just knowing that the landscape continues to change. You made a commitment to help people of color to get a foot in the door. And you say in your book that one of the things that you appreciate the most about roles that you've had is educator. And through this Hollywood Confidential, a platform that you created, you've been able to bring a lot of people together to educate the next generation and also to support each other. So tell us about Hollywood Confidential, how you started it and what impact it has had thus far.
Absolutely. I created it about 12 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
When I first got to Los Angeles, I was established as a marketing executive through my own company. I had an awesome internship opportunity when I was in high school through Destiny's Child and Matthew Knowles, which put me on the path when I got to college on how I wanted to show up in the world, if you will. And so I started that company in college, and it took off, and it led me to Los Angeles. And I met a lot of aspiring actors, directors, producers of color who were broke. And the way my heart is set up, I was either paying the rent out of my pocket or allowing them to sleep on my couch. And I realized I was going to be out of house and home and money. I continued in this direction. So I started Hollywood Confidential, which at the time I always say was wild because I was not in Hollywood and I had no secrets to the business.
But wait, let me just back up for a second, because you came from Ohio, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So you come here, well, there to California, start something to help people in a business that you were not in.
Right.
That takes a vision. What made you have that decision? Like, something told you in your core that you had to do this thing that wasn't even what you weren't in that stream already. Why did you feel you had to do it?
You know what? I always say it's a whole lot of faith, some naivety, and just being young and excited and eager. You mix all that together and you got me feeling like I was called to lead this charge. Mm-hmm. And by man's standard, completely unqualified. But I've just always been a helper. That's the way I was raised. That's the way my mom and my late father raised me, was to be of service. And there was a quote that I came by that said, if you want to find your purpose, give yourself away inside of service. And so I've always done that. When I was at Ohio State, I was bringing concerts to help with the retention rate for African Americans for graduation. I was doing big outdoor concerts with huge artists at that time. And my heart was just always to give back. And I hadn't even graduated. So fast forward Los Angeles, when all of these actors, writers, producers are coming to me, because I did have entertainment clients in marketing. And so I wasn't visible in that way. But as far as Hollywood, it was more music based. Mm-hmm. As far as Hollywood, I wasn't there, but I was in Los Angeles, and I just began to receive inquiries of people saying, hey, you seem to be established, or you seem to be connected. Can you help me to get an actor inside of my debut feature film? Or can you help me to raise funding? You're a marketing executive. How do I do sponsorships? And so I kind of got pulled in there. And then I had this bright light bulb idea to just say, you know what, let me create a forum dedicated to helping creatives of color, young African Americans, Latinos, Asians. There's a huge disparity when it comes to opportunities for creatives of color and mainstream color. So my heart has always been devoted to creating space and opportunity for creatives of color. And who would have known 12 years later that it would be my sole source of income, and so closely aligned with my purpose and all I do and all I talk about 24 hours a day.
I mean, you just said a lot of things. I'm going to start with this semester I'm teaching at FIT, and it's a wonderful, full-on experience, along with lots of other things that I do. But I'm listening to students, this is at the end of the semester, and a lot of them are seriously struggling because they don't know if they can stay for the summer. New York City is very, very expensive, and they don't have the money. They don't know whether they can come back next semester because they scraped together this semester. So when you talk about graduating, I mean, I just taught class last night and listened to some of these kids who are yearning to learn and unsure of whether they will be able to finance that. So when you describe that level of service that you offered even when you were in college, I totally get it, because I'm watching it. You see it on their faces, and their hearts are on their sleeves. I don't know what I'm going to do. And for you, at the level of student to have the vision to do something, and not just have the vision, but make it happen, is commendable. And I'm sure those students were so grateful.
I believe so. I'm actually running into a lot of them currently in preparing to do some events in Columbus, where I graduated from the Ohio State University, the very important. And I'm still running into people who are impacted by those events and by the programming that we put in place.
That's wonderful. And so Hollywood Confidential is in a sense your extension of that in a different industry. You talk in your book very early on about service and how service must come first. I think a lot of us grew up in households where we were taught that no matter, it doesn't matter how much money you make, it doesn't matter how stressed you are, you should live in service. And but showing people what that looks like, especially in an industry that can be cutthroat, is I mean, again, I'm sure people are very appreciative of that as well. You mentioned early on you had an opportunity with Beyonce, with Destiny's Child, with Matthew Knowles. How did that come to be, and how was that a springboard for you?
Well, this is 1999. The internet was not what it is today. Of course, digital piracy had not fully come into play. And things like Napster and file trading systems, they were probably being created or ideated, but they weren't into full fruition yet. And so I think either I went to the grocery store and got AOL, where they had dial-up, where you got to dial through the landline. And your mom and dad are yelling at you like, I can't get any out-order incoming calls. Get off this internet.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah. And I was on there with my sister, have to shout her out. And we were on the beginnings of the makings of a message board, where all these fans were able to come and talk about their various favorite musicians, artists, etc. And somebody, some kind of way, illegally uploaded the writings on the wall. And we downloaded it on WinZip. And I'm very much dating myself now, but downloaded it, played it through WinZip, and heard every song. This is 6 months before the release. And so we went to a local concert where Destiny's Child was featured in Pittsburgh. And we were in the front row, and Destiny's Child decided to debut some of their new music. And we knew the words, my sister and I, 6 months ahead of release. And I remember Beyonce's face looking at us like,
uh-oh.
Nothing bad happened there, but I don't know where the idea came from. I got on the search engine, which Google did not even exist at that time. Super dated myself. And
that's okay.
I got in and searched Matthew Knowles and Music World Management until I found someone who picked up by the name of Damani Barham. And I was able to get Matthew Knowles the illegal upload. And long story short, the rest is history. I was given the opportunity to moderate their digital message board called dc-unplug.com. I think I was called a ghostwriter. I received product on their behalf. I would be able to give input about the project. I got to meet the girls several times. I got to go on multiple tour dates on the TLC Destiny's Child tour. It was really cool. Everybody from my college got to come with me, you know, my floor of my college. It was great. It was a great opportunity, and it opened up my eyes once again to what I wanted to do and what major I would decide when I did enroll in college. It was an awesome opportunity.
That's fantastic. And your being proactive is what made that happen.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, you know, paying attention and doing the right thing. When those go together, then we're in a very good place. People can pay attention to do the wrong thing, like whoever put that on there illegally.
Right.
Which is, you know, I worked for a year with Prince.
Ooh.
And I know I traveled around the country with him on his Welcome to America tour. Okay. And had the great good fortune of talking to him a lot. And one of the things that would drive him bananas was the internet, because he felt that so much stuff was being stolen. He was a bit paranoid about certain things, but he was certain that they weren't making all the money they should make, because how can you be sure that every click is being
Right.
counted?
Right.
When if he appeared on television, it would appear once. He would make them take it down. You couldn't replay it. I mean, he had a lot of rules, and because he was Prince and he was really strong, he was able to make that happen for a minute, But I remember his concern because there was not the protection that you may have had before the internet was there, right? But as we know, things change, and you can't put a plug in technology. You can't stop it. So you have to kind of figure out what to do with it and how it can be used in an honorable way, which I think is a continuous challenge.
Yeah. First of all, we need your book next. We want to hear your stories about Prince.
I've got a lot of stories.
Yeah. To your point, maybe he was a little paranoid, but it was rooted in truth.
Sure.
Democracy is a real thing. And how do you make sure that you can calculate every stream, every click, every download? We're not sure. Those of us who have lived long enough to see cassette tapes, CDs, move into MP3s, now moving to streaming, it's a lot. And then I wasn't around in the LP album era, but I know what one looks like. My daddy had them all around the house. Yeah. So it's a lot that we've had to adapt to as we continue to matriculate through these world systems. And so, it's a lot. It's a lot. I understand why he was the way he was.
Sure. And technology is what it is, and we have to figure out how to be in the present. Let me remind folks, this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. We are talking with Steve Jones. He has written a new book, Hollywood Confidential, 12 Secrets to Becoming the Star of Your Own Life. I love that it is of your own life. You're telling people to go inside, look within, check yourself. And when you cultivate yourself, exactly, then what happens? So I know that your family has a lot to do with this mindset. You dedicate your book to your dad, and he recently passed away. But when they leave us, that doesn't mean they leave us, because the lessons are right there. Talk about what those seeds were that were planted that have led you to this way of being and thinking.
Got it. Yes. Was raised by a retail store district manager and a school teacher who on the weekends was a minister. And so my dad actually, with his dad, used to dig ditches for graves. And he also helped his dad pick cotton. So my dad worked very hard in order to get himself from a path that may not have led him to success to creating a path or blazing a trail where there was no path. And one thing I'm most proud of is that in his passing, he had already worked out all the finances ahead of time. He had written out his will and detailed instructions for us to follow. This is how much is in stocks. This is how much is in bonds. This is how much is liquid. This is the number to my accountant. Everything was laid out. Password to my cell phone. Password to my email account. I've already worked out pension and Social Security to go to your mother immediately upon my passing.
Wow.
We wanted for nothing during such a difficult time. He had already laid the foundation for us. And so that just goes to speak to his business acumen, his mind, his heart, the integrity that he led with. He was a visionary, even when it came to his own passing. So those are the things, the building blocks that were instilled in me. And of course, with my mom being a minister, the principles of integrity and making sure that your heart is right and loving people and loving God, all of those principles were put in me. And my dad was an astute businessman. And so we saw him put on that shirt and tie and go to work every day. And he would come home late, and he would be tired on the weekends because he was working hard for the money. And so I
Mhm.
say that to say those were the early on points of representation that I had that helped to shape me into who I am today.
You just said so many things, starting with the level of organization for taking care of your family
Yeah.
for whenever he would pass. And you said that it was an untimely passing. No, you were there, and then he was gone. That's often how it happens. But for him to have been that prepared is so important, because end of life is hard enough anyway.
Yeah.
And when all the ducks are in a row, then at least you can grieve without having to worry about, can you pay for the funeral? Can
Yeah.
you keep your house? Which are some things that people grapple with. You there's I might be in the first chapter of these 12 secrets. You set the scene of working with Oprah Winfrey, and understandably, that I totally get this, because I've worked with a lot of celebrities over the years, and I've been in her presence multiple times. And you kind of feel like, oh, do I belong here? And thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And you're doing all your thank yous, and she stops you and it's like, no, you're here because you deserve to be here. You did the work. And I hear, now hearing you speak and also reading your book, I see your parents prepared you. You did the work. Oprah Winfrey was not going to hire you unless you were coming correct. But also she let you know that. And so you talk about confidence and courage and that sense of stepping into your own self, the fullness of who you are.
Yeah.
And I think that's what she was kind of pointing out to you. Now's not the time to defer to me. Now's the time for you to own your stuff, because that's how you're going to be able to do what we've hired you to do. Can
Yeah.
you talk about that? Because a lot of people don't know how to access courage. That a lot of people are really afraid that, if there's a Marianne Williamson quote that Nelson Mandela used about about people being afraid of the light, afraid of embracing their power. Can you talk about accessing courage and power?
Oh, for sure. I'm so glad you brought up Marianne Williamson. She is a mentor of mine from afar. That's my
Mhm.
goal. Um, love, 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 love. Her book, A Return to Love, actually confirmed that I was going to write a book. I've read it cover to cover 3 times. Um, but it's her thought. I'll answer your question in a second, but it was her
That's
thought,
fine.
that particular book, when she said something along the lines of, we as a society are obsessed with stardom, but it's because we have not yet figured out how to master personal stardom. Something along those lines.
Mhm.
From there, that I was inspired to create the subtitle for this book, 12 Secrets to Become a Star of Your Own Life. Because why get caught up in what you're doing, whether it's a celebrity or someone we admire, someone we look up to? Yeah, I can take cliff notes on how to extract lessons from you, but that needs to be for my own greatness. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? So that's what this book is about. Um, to anyone out there who feels like they don't have the courage to push forward towards your dreams, I don't have the solution. I don't have a solvent.
Mhm.
I can say is do it afraid, because we only get one lifetime in this body. And I don't know about you, but before I leave, I want to go out empty. I want everything that was placed in me to give to this world in this lifetime to come to fulfillment or fruition. And so I don't have time for welcoming or encouraging moments of fear or doubt. I have time for leaning into my strengths, my purpose, and I have time for being intentional with who I have around me to make sure that when I don't feel encouraged or inspired, or when I don't see it for myself, those people who I've assembled in this ensemble cast, in my story, because I do hold that pen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those people are able to reflect back what they see about me, even when I don't see it. So, again,
What my mother and grandmother called keep good company.
amen to that.
You know, you speak about optimism as one of those 12 secrets, and as I mentioned, my mother's 95 years old, and her lessons have always been about optimism. And when you're down, she says, count your blessings. Literally, write them down if you have to. You are blessed to wake up in the morning. You're blessed to have something to eat, to have somebody who loves you. You know, whatever the smallest thing that you might need to count, if you need to because you're feeling down, do it. Be optimistic. You exude optimism. And you know that a whole lot of people, especially in that sphere of Hollywood, and we're talking to everyone, but for people who want to be in these spaces where there's a lot of subjective criticism, it can be really tough to stay optimistic. What is the message that you want people to understand about accessing optimism, especially if maybe they don't feel that today?
In that chapter, I specifically talk about growing up around individuals who were just naturally optimistic. And I don't feel like I began my journey like that. Be it through life circumstances, situations, I don't know what it was, but if it's a glass half empty versus glass half full, I was more of a glass half empty type. So I had to work on developing my muscle of optimism, if you will. And so it is achievable. I want to let anybody out there know. And the way how I was able to get there was through affirmations, which is why at the end of each chapter, there is affirmation, because I know how that shifted my perspective and allowed me to step into my most optimistic self. And so I just want to encourage everybody to lean into the powerful tool of reframing. A great friend of mine, Dr. Kumar Birch out of London, maybe 15 years ago, taught me about reframing, which is exactly what it sounds like. Figuring out a different, more positive way to look at even the most difficult of situations. And that tool of reframing has definitely helped to ground me in the principle of optimism. And so I want to encourage anybody out there, you don't have to naturally be an optimist in order to lean into that principle.
Excellent. I want to go to another one of the secrets. We're not going to do all of them, so I'm moving around, but because you have to read the book. But detachment. I think detachment is super important. And, you know, I think about that book, The Four Agreements. And one of the four agreements is not to take things personally. And I think that's one of the harder things for people to do, especially if you feel attacked, especially if you feel vulnerable. This notion of detachment it's tough. It's tough, especially, you know, you're building your life. You need other people.
Yeah.
If perhaps you do something that is in the public eye, well, and by the way, every single person who's on social media is in the public eye. Do I have enough friends? Do I have enough likes? You know, this need for affirmation in order to feel that you're worth anything is very dangerous, but it's part of our culture today. How does one practice detachment in a culture that is so hungry for affirmation?
Ooh, okay. All right, you coming. Yes, social media is a trap for affirmation and validation. And, you know, I always tell people validation is for parking, you know. I can never look external for that validation. Validation and approval of myself has to come from the inside. So you make an excellent point there. When it comes to detachment, uh, this is one of my favorite chapters. I have 3 favorite chapters, and this is definitely one of them. Um, Here we can want something so bad that it causes us to squander the opportunity. And I really feel like what's for me is for me, and it's already been written out. And all I have to do is through integrity based practices and living aligned with what is purposed for me, which is why I don't even believe there's such a thing as competition, because again, what's for me is for me, right? Um, so I say all of that to say it's great to plan for something, it's great to want for something, it's great to have a desire. But the reality is, you have to surrender that thing to something greater than you, whatever it is you believe in. And you have to allow divine timing to come into play, because you can't beat the door down and chase something so hard. Um, Again, you chase it so hard, you run in jeopardy of losing that thing or presenting yourself at the wrong time. Sometimes it's just not your time. It doesn't mean it won't happen, but it's just not the aligned or divine timing for that wish, that dream, that want, that desire to happen. So I just think that we need to safeguard our dreams. And one of the ways that we can safeguard it is to detach from the outcome. If I don't expect anything, then I can't be too disappointed. And so that's how I look at it. The principle of detachment has saved my life from many a heartbreak.
I believe that.
Many a heartbreak. You put projects out there in the world, like the television projects that I've created or the events that I do. You don't know if people are going to show up. You don't know if it's going to be well received. This book, you don't know if it's reaching the right amount of people to hit X amount of lists, but you've got to detach from that outcome and do everything in your power that you know to do. And then again, surrender that thing up to something that is higher than you and continue to move forward with what you know what to do.
Excellent. Hey guys, this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. We are talking to Steve Jones. He has written, it's memoir plus, you know, the personal stories. We love hearing from folks who are bold-faced names because we live in a culture that makes us care a little bit more, and you've got a lot of them in your life, and you got some good ones in here sharing insights. His book is Hollywood Confidential, 12 Secrets to Becoming the Star of Your Own Life. I just want you all to hear that, star of your own life, because your life is worth just as much as any of these bold-faced names, because in your world, you are the bold-faced name, or you certainly should be. You should treat yourself as if you are a bold-faced name, and imagine what great things you attract to yourself if you do that. Now, faith, you just set us up for talking about faith because you talk about detachment and being able to really understand that there's a power greater than you out there. And I often talk broadly about faith because people understand God in lots of different ways. And that's, for me, that's fine, however you get it. But how can we be on this planet and all the amazing things that happen and not understand that there's a power greater than us at work? And when you can be in alignment with that energy, you know, the divinity within you that connects you to the rest of the world, wow, what can't you do when you're in that flow?
Yeah, facts. I don't know why I keep singing the lyrics in my head to that Whitney Houston song, "Somebody Bigger Than You and I," which is cool. I don't know why it's been in my head this entire interview, but yeah, whatever it is that you believe in, I don't force my beliefs on anybody. Whatever it is, however you connect, just connect. You know what I'm saying? It's not my job.
What are your practices? What are your do you have rituals, practices that you do to stay connected?
Yeah. Actually, Brandy Norwood, who wrote the foreword to this book, shout out to her. She got me into it maybe 10 years ago, which is funny when you look at it because John Singleton's Boys in the Hood, Debbie Allen's A Different World, Moesha with Brandy. These were some of the first television shows, the first forms of representation that informed who I was going to be on the West Coast and allowed me to see myself when we didn't have a lot of representation back in the late 80s, early 90s. And so it's funny now when I tell the story, I connected. I forgot that Moesha in her story, in her television show, she would write in her journal every day. Turns out the real Brandy, right, believes in journaling as well. And for one of my birthdays, she gave me the gift of a journal, which I was like, okay. I don't know that a lot of guys are like, I'm gonna go home and write in my journal. But, she knew I was going through a transition in my career, moving out of marketing into content creation and wanting to go on the next level. And not everybody wants to see you matriculate or go higher or ascend to the next level. A lot of people are comfortable with you being right where they met you at. And so Brandy was like, I'll come to the house. And she gifted me with a journal for my birthday. And she told me, listen, I know that you probably don't journal. And I was like, I sure do not. And she this can be a meditative practice. And she took me to the scripture that said, write the vision and make it plain. And she was like, if you commit to writing in this thing every day or a minimum of once a week, I promise you the things that you write, the words that you write, the concepts that you write on this page, on these pages will come to fruition. And so I started doing that. I stayed committed for about 3 years of just writing out my dreams, my visions, my goals. Was it daily? Nah, but it was like at least monthly. And one of the things that I wrote about and put on a vision board was having a book deal with HarperCollins. And here we are. I was very specific. It wasn't just a book deal. It was with this particular imprint. And so that's definitely one of the practices that I lean into.
I think that's really powerful. I now host a class called the 100-Day Plan because I did this last year. And when you set an intention and focus on it every day for 100 days, you manifest it. And what I've written a number of books, but I hadn't written one in a long time. And I told myself I need to write another book, and I got a book deal. And I tell people, look, I'm no different than you, just like you are no different. People often think if you have a platform, you're different. Oh, you're special. You're this. The only difference is you keep working. You keep going for it. You create a vision, and then you work to manifest the vision. And I absolutely believe in journaling. I absolutely believe in dreaming. This program is called DREAMLEAPERS. The whole point of it is that we should dream, that we should have the courage to dream big, and then to believe that we are worthy of manifesting whatever those dreams may be. And that worthiness piece, I think, is very important too, for people to understand their value. And what happens if you bring your best into the world gets better.
Facts.
And so, Steve, so knowing that these things can be true, we experience it, you and I experience it. We also live in a world where there's a lot of trauma, and there's a lot of negativity, and there's a lot of denial of who many of us are. What do you do as a Black man in America when Black men are in peril in many instances? How do you stay strong? How do you encourage other, in particular Black men, to feel, to really live in their greatness when there is a lot of negativity and hatred toward you?
Man, these are wonderful questions, by the way. I appreciate your flow, your journalistic style. Great questions. In particular, at the top of the pandemic, which we had just run into all of the social justice, it all just ran together. And I actually got a group of 10 to 15 Black men together at my house to start start doing yoga, journaling, meditation. And additionally, we did vision boards as well, which most of them had never done it. And it was great doing breath work and things that, we actually had time to research, figure out what they were, and get into each of those practices for the first 2 years of the pandemic. And then I was able to take that men's circle to an organization called Walk Good, led by Etienne Maurice. And
right. Shirley Ralph's son,
yeah,
right? Mm-hmm.
got it. And so we were able to go do yoga with larger groups once we got our stuff together internally. But it's just being intentional again about with who you have around you in your circle, and making sure that you actually pick up the phone and call. Most guys, not the guys that I run with, but most guys are just emotionally incarcerated. And, it's hard for a lot of men to pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm struggling, I'm going through XYZ. And when the world slowed down, a lot of those people who had filled up their lives with going out and doing this and that to stay away from or to avoid self were now confronted with self 24/7. There was nowhere you could go or hide. And so I'm thankful that I cultivated a circle of emotionally free guys who be like, hey, I'm struggling, I'm going through XYZ. Let's bring this group together. So I think that being vulnerable, being transparent, and making sure that those people that you have around you are aligned in that way. That's a way how we've been able to keep each other encouraged. And then social media helps. You'll run into it while you're scrolling the post that'll say, hey, send this to a Black man who needs to hear it. So we've got those threads and groups going on as well. So those are the different ways that I've been able to foster a emotionally healthy circle of guys who keep each other encouraged, to your point, as the world is leading the attack on our lives, but that's how.
That's a great answer. You mentioned something that is another one of the 12 secrets: intentionality. I have a friend who, my best friend from growing up, and we are still close. And she is now president of a university. I love seeing us blossom into all that we can be. But when we were younger, we would, and in some tender moments, we made this agreement that we need to be conscious and intentional. Whatever we do, like pause.
Love that.
And are we being conscious and intentional about what we're doing? You don't know if you don't take a moment to pause and reflect and assess. Intentionality is a big concept. And I think when you mentioned the pandemic, there were a lot of great things that came out of that, because even as awful as it was, we came to a screeching halt and had to pause. Except for frontline workers, everybody had to pause. And in that pause, I interviewed a lot of people, like, what did you do during that time? How did you use that time? Were you intentional? Did you just sleep and watch TV or whatever? Or what did you do? So I'm curious, what does intentionality mean to you? And when you are telling other people about it, especially people who haven't thought about it, how do you describe this as something that would be appealing to them to consider in their lives? When a lot of people, I'm too busy to pause, I'm too busy to think about that. You don't know how many things I have to do. How do you cut through that to get them to consider intentionality?
I just feel like anybody who has a dream, anybody who has a desire to be more, to tap into the greater selves, anybody who values purpose and why they were sent here to earth, I just feel like you have to prioritize that amongst or above all else. And it's okay to be a full-time wife, husband, mother, son, whatever other roles you play on this earth stage. But again, you have to be concerned with why you were sent here and the purpose that you were sent to fulfill. And so setting the stage in that way, when it comes to intention and intentionality, I just feel like you've got to safeguard, once again, the dream, the purpose. And you have to live in the present. You have to make a conscious decision to be present and to move with purpose. That's what intention is. It's figuring out your North Star and your why, and then making decisions, a collection of choices that align with that North Star.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be determined that no matter what other roles I fulfill on this stage, I'm the star and I'm going to be moving forward to fulfill said purpose until the last breath in my body. And so that's how I would present it to someone.
That's powerful. Hey guys, this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. We have just a few more minutes with Steve Jones. He is the author of Hollywood Confidential: 12 Secrets to Becoming the Star of Your Own Life. So Steve, in these few minutes that we have left, I mean, you've been dropping wisdom the whole time. But I'm curious, as we move into this second half of this year, time is zipping by. What are you hoping people will do for themselves to find peace and joy and fulfillment?
Prioritize it. Prioritize the fulfillment of your purpose. Get serious about you. Get serious about your why. Get a journal if you need to. You got notes on your iPhone. If you're an iPhone person like myself, write out what it is that you feel you've been called to do. And if you don't know what that is, start with the things that I like to do that bring me joy. And then once you've done that, you've been intentional about listing those things out, you'll bump into your purpose or that version of yourself. You'll uncover that. And I just want people to take time to figure out we're not just here passing through.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely are all here on an assignment. And I don't know about you, Harry, but I'm trying to fulfill it. And I don't want to just fulfill it. I want to ace that thing. A plus.
Yes.
You feel me? So I feel like when you ask me, what do I want people to do with their lives for the remaining 6 months and beyond? Get intentional because time is short. Time is short. And with everything that's going on in the world, we won't get into that granularly. But with everything that's going on, I just feel like we have to prioritize our purpose and our fulfillment and make sure that we are happy and that we are aligned with why we were called to Earth at this particular time in space.
And I want us to end on a point talking about legacy. You very recently lost your father. My mother's in that the tender stages of beginning to leave us, and we are so grateful that we have her. But we know that these are those tender stages, and I'm really curious about how people process family legacy, the lessons we learn from the elders, and how they help to guide our steps. And I know your mother is here and strong, and you're there, with her, supporting her, and hearing your father's lessons echoing in your head. What does legacy mean to you, and what do you think it can mean to others?
Man, you just want people to speak well of you. In order to be spoken well of, you have to operate and do well, right? And so when I think about legacy, I want people to know that I was here and that my life made a difference. And that's why I've leaned into the principle of service, making sure that I'm giving just as much, if not more, than I'm receiving. And so when it comes to legacy, I just want people to, once again, make a conscious decision to be intentional and be present and to live inside of purpose and to use their life and the lessons that they've accrued as a class that can feed the lives of many. And your legacy, the goal is not to live forever, but to create something that will. So you have in your two hands right now that you can create something that will outlast you and make the people who remain, your lineage, proud. This book is not my full legacy. It's a portion or part of it. But I know that my legacy, my purpose is to be of service, is to give back, is to help people to uncover their purpose. And this book is a tool to continue to service my purpose, but there are many tools that I can use to do that. And so I just want people to just, once again, move with intention, move with purpose, be present, and be figuring out what it is that they can do with their two hands in this body, right where they are. You don't need money. You don't need to know celebrities. What can you do right now that can be of service? If it's helping someone cross the street, it can be as minuscule in the minds of some, as small as that. If it's helping someone at the grocery store, if it's helping someone at the nursing home, those things matter. And so I'll stop there. I know we're at the end of our time, but I've enjoyed the time together. And
Oh, absolutely. This is, look, I can't wait to call you on and say, yep, you were right, girl. This is wonderful. And I feel confident that all of the people who tune into Dream Leapers are grateful that you spent this time with us. Hollywood Confidential, 12 Secrets to Becoming the Star of Your Own Life. Steve Jones, thank you for all that you have done and for pouring your heart into this book. You feel that your heart is in there as you're reading it, and I know that people will benefit when they do too. Thank you and good luck.
Appreciate you.
And thank all of you for tuning in. I told you this was going to be great, and it certainly was. Until next time, have a great day and make it count.